I don't want no oil a-spoiling my shoreline. I like fish much better than crud. I like birds and things a-creeping and crawling. Won't trade no more oil for blood. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that black demon oil's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. I don't want them nukes run by them kooks who think radioactivity is fun. No more three-headed frogs or kids with leukemia. Nuclear power ain't fit for a dog. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that nuclear power's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. No nukes!
Good morning, Toledo, and good afternoon, Columbus. Good evening, Bowling Green, and hello to everyone on the internet, wherever and whenever you are. My name is Joe DeMare, and I'm here with my fantabulous co-host,
Rebecca Wood.
Yes, together Rebecca and I are crafting a wonderful hour of radio called For a Green Future, and as in like full of wonder hour. For a Green Future is a show where we talk about ecology and the environment. And we talk about it in the ways that it affects you, your wealth, your health, your happiness. The wealth and health and happiness of the fungi growing in the forest, and the little bugs that eat the fungi, and the birds that eat the bugs, and the big birds that eat the little birds that eat the insects that eat the fungi. Because, like it or not, all of us, fungi, birds, and bugs, are all together on this wonderful little planet called Earth. And we have a very interesting show for you today. We're going to chat for another 10 minutes or so. And then we have a guest, special guest, Libbe HaLevy, who is a anti-nuclear activist. She actually has a show called Nuclear Hotseat, which she's been basically watchdogging the nuclear industry for decades. And she just has written and is now producing a play that we're going to hear about when she calls in. Then we hear from our advertisers and patrons, to whom we are eternally grateful. And then Rebecca has an interesting topic today. What are you going to talk about today, Rebecca?
I am doing a segment called AI, yay.
Okay. Did you get that title from AI, or did that come out of your own brain?
I thought of it myself, actually, yes.
Amazing. Okay, then it's Ecological News, and as always, hopefully at some point we'll hear from you. 877-909-1007 is the number to call in to our live call-in show on ecology and the environment. All right, so as I mentioned, well, as I didn't mention, but the reason I was talking about fungi in the intro today, because I had a very interesting experience yesterday. I was out at Oak Openings Metropark and was on a mushroom hunt. The Lucas County Park District had a little hike there, and you get to walk along, and we were searching for edible mushrooms. Specifically, we were searching for chicken of the woods, which we've actually talked about on our show before, and turkey tail, and morels and things, and we found one of those. We did find a very pretty species, example of chicken of the woods, but we found 17 species of fungi in Oak Openings, most of which, of course, aren't really edible, but all very important to the ecology. And one of the ones that we found was actually an invasive fungi from Asia. I mean, we know about invasive plants and invasive insects and invasive critters, but there is actually an invasive fungi that is causing problems, especially up in Michigan, where it seems to be crowding out all the native fungi. It's not edible. It's not particularly pleasing to the eye. It just looks kind of like a blob. But so I I learned that we have an invasive fungi problem, and on top of all our other invasive problems.
Oh my.
Yes. But it was, all in all, it was very pleasant. It was very nice to be out there in the woods, walking around, finding mushrooms of all sorts. And it was also very nice temperature. It was, we've been having some really nice days lately. Now, this morning, it was actually quite cool, and it was actually 10 degrees below average this morning. But, as we always like to point out, that doesn't mean there's no such thing as global warming. All right, one cold snap, one cold stretch of weather does not invalidate the whole theory of global warming, which is supported by science. We have a big story on that coming up later on in the show. But one thing that the guy did, though, was he picked up this invasive fungus, and he was like, here it is, so and so forth, and the fungi that we see. He made this point that, but when you actually see it in the wild, it kind of brings it home, is that the part that we see, the little pop-up, the mushrooms, the part that sticks up out of the ground or pops out of the tree, is just a tiny little piece of the fungi that's producing it, And so the way he put it is that when you see the mushroom, it's as if you're looking at a tree, and all you see are the seeds, because the reproducing body, the actual fungus that sticks up that we can harvest, is supported by mycelium, little threads that go all through the tree or the ground or whatever it's feeding on. And the mycelium, compared to the fungal body, the fruiting body, as it's called, is huge. And in fact, the largest organism in the world is something like 800 square miles wide, because it has expanded, the mycelium, the little root-like fibers, have expanded out in all directions, and they took a genetic test at one end of this whole thing, and then a genetic test at the opposite end, and it was exactly the same. So it's this incredible organism.
And they're not actually plants or animals. They're some kind of other critter, right?
Yeah.
Fungi.
Yeah. He did make that point, too, that we always talk about the flora and the fauna, but the fungi are a whole separate thing.
They're fauna or something.
Right. So, but just another example of nature, and he has a license. The state of Michigan issues mushroom hunting licenses. You have to take a test. You've got to be able to identify a bunch of mushrooms correctly, and it's very, it's actually a booming industry up there in Michigan. This guy earns his living hunting in the woods for wild mushrooms, for edible wild mushrooms. And I know that some of our higher class restaurants here in Toledo serve mushrooms that were wild foraged up in Michigan. And we don't have anything like that in Ohio. It's all catch as catch can. But I did learn that you can't harvest from any of the Toledo Metroparks. So even if you see a nice, delicious mushroom, you're not going to be able to go pick it. So and we didn't actually harvest any, even though this was an official sanctioned event. We just sort of picked them and looked at them. But one thing he did do when he picked up this Asian one, he was like, oh, here's this Asian fungi. And I was kind of concerned because you get the spores on your hands when you do that. And then he was going around and picking other fungi. And I was kind of like, aren't you spreading the bad spores too? And shouldn't you sanitize your hands after picking the invasive thing? And he said that the spores of the fungi are so resilient. He said a lot of them can actually go out into outer space and get full radiation exposure because they're coated. Fungal spores are coated with an extremely tough shell, he said, and they pass right through the digestive tracts of critters, so animals that eat them are spreading them. He said it would be useless
Right.
to actually try to sanitize your hands, and
'Cause those would be sort of a drop in the bucket, and if they can survive outer space, they can probably survive your hand sanitizer.
exactly that's what he
Right.
said.
That makes sense. Okay.
Right. But still, I'm also on this Facebook group that is people who take pictures of wild chestnuts that are still growing. People are always finding chestnut trees. They're supposed to be extinct in North America, but people keep finding living ones. But then for some reason, they keep touching the trunk. And I'm like, and I know, they've touched trunks that are diseased, and now they're touching
Right.
the healthy ones that they find, and they send
Right.
pictures with their hands on them. And I'm kind of like, you've probably got some spores of the fungus that kills chestnut on your hands. And this guy who was doing the tour yesterday said that he just accepts that he now has like a cloud of fungal spores that constantly surrounds him.
That's not something I really want to think about.
Yeah, so but it was fun. It was a beautiful day, and I was glad that I
You're never alone with your face mites and cloud of fungal spores.
yes, exactly. They're always with you.
Yeah, there we go.
But yeah, and so another thing that we're not alone on is that we have a show that's on some of our stations. Like we share WGRN with a woman named Libbe HaLevy, and she shares our disdain for nuclear power that we constantly come back to on this show. And so I'm lucky enough to line up an interview with her today. So, Libbe, are you there?
I am here. Thank you very much, Joseph, for the interview.
You're welcome. And did I get your name right, Libbe?
You are very close to exactly right, and I will take it.
Very close. All right, close enough. And and your last name?
HaLevy.
HaLevy. Okay. So, so you have a play coming up, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I just want to sort of go back over your sort of main contribution to the fight against nuclear power, and that is your show, Nuclear Hotseat. How long have you been doing that?
I started it 3 months after Fukushima on June 14, 2011, and with 4 exceptions, all 4 extreme situations, most recently the Alta Dena fire, which came very close to where I lived, I have done it every week since then, with 740 episodes that are available to anyone for free. They're at nuclearhotseat.com.
Right. So we're only like, what are we like 340 episodes? So we're we're got a ways to catch up with you on
Mere
this.
infants.
Mm-hmm. But you mentioned Fukushima, which of course is definitely a disaster that inspired a lot of people to start talking about nuclear again. But your opposition to nuclear power happened a lot earlier than that, didn't it?
Yes, I was visiting friends in Middletown, Pennsylvania in what year is it now? 1969, whatever the year was. Anyway, I was 1 mile away from the nuclear meltdown at the 3 Mile Island nuclear facility when it happened. And we didn't know how bad it was. We stayed for 3 days. I was actually walking around outside in the nice Pennsylvania springtime air, taking deep breaths at the exact time that many years later through Nuclear Hotseat, I discovered was when the thickest cloud of radiation had been released from 3 Mile Island and went directly in the direction where I was, because I was walking along the Susquehanna River, and that's the pathway that it took. So without knowing the specifics, I was pretty significantly toxed by that, and nobody could tell me what it was or how much had happened or what would happen to me as a result. So when I got back to California, we did evacuate on the third day. And when I got back to California, after much debate, much extremely anguished debate, I simply determined that I would not have any children because I didn't want to find out what might happen to them. And nobody could tell me, and I would take nobody's assurances that I was okay.
Wow.
I did not realize that's why you chose not to have children. So it's safe to say it's had a large impact on your life. And
yes, and I ignored nuclear for many years, and then Fukushima kicked me back into the game.
Mm-hmm. And of course, you're not alone. I mean, people like to portray the nukesters often claim that their nuclear power has no victims. That nobody has been harmed by the nuclear power industry. Zero deaths. All those wild claims. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. That's one of their long-standing lies. I mean, they like to say nobody died at 3 Mile Island. And semantically, they're right. On that series of days when the leak was happening at that facility, nobody died. But radiation exposure takes years, if not decades, to show the damage in people's bodies. And there was no follow-up study except what's been done by the people who live there. And what they've discovered is that in the immediate aftermath, there were deaths of animals, there were mutations. Somebody had a dog breeding facility there, and all the dogs were either giving birth to dead babies or mutated babies. There was fasciation, there was mutation in the plant life around, all of which has been documented. And there are high cancer rates, high rates of autoimmune diseases, and other illnesses that are caused by exposure to radiation. But the industry gets away with it because it takes so long for the results to show up that they don't allow you to connect cause and effect, when indeed there is a cause and effect. But they say, not us, we didn't do it, that happened a long time ago.
Right.
So it's just part of the way they get away with things.
Yeah. All right. Well, now let's fast forward to today, to this week, actually. So your experiences and your what you've learned through your doing your show for so long has kind of created a fruiting body, as we say. We started out talking about fungi, so you've produced an artistic product here to talk about the nuclear industry. Tell us about your play.
Well, people in the anti-nuclear world don't know this, but I was professionally involved in theater for 35 years. I'm an award-winning playwright. I had a musical that was optioned for Broadway, which unfortunately didn't get there. But I wrote at a very high level and then dropped it all after a disappointment, and that was about the time that I started with working on nuclear Hotseat. So that took my creative energy. But I discovered a story about a New York Times reporter who was embedded in the Manhattan Project and became the first propagandist. He had been a highly respected science reporter for the New York Times. General Groves got him into the Manhattan Project to get control over him because he was getting a little too close to stories that Groves didn't want out. And after 4 months there, he became a total nuclear apologist. He stopped all reporting on radiation. He did not include it in any of his stories, the dangers of radiation, and really set the agenda and the trajectory for us to go, nuke's good, we need more, which is the legacy of the man. And I started when I found out that there was a press release written to cover up the Trinity blast. That was the test in New Mexico, which was 3 weeks before Hiroshima and then Nagasaki. Nobody knew about nuclear. Nobody was supposed to know anything was happening there. And a press release was sent out that was written before the event saying, nothing important happened, a couple buildings got destroyed, and no one was hurt. But it was written before. And you don't write press releases before.
Isn't that was that the incident where this entire girls' camp in Texas or somewhere was irradiated? Like kids at summer camp?
Yeah. It wasn't a summer camp. It was a group of girls who were camping there. And there's
Okay.
a false picture on the internet showing them posing, standing in the middle of a creek or something with the mushroom cloud behind them.
Was
Long
it
mushroom
snowing?
cloud is
They
one
thought it
from
was
the Marshall
snow.
Islands. Yeah, that's what the people in the area thought.
Right.
We have been told that nobody was living there, but we've since found out that there were a lot of people living there. And the ash coming down was snow. But it was a remote area. These people had no idea what happened because there was no precedent for it. And so the narrative was set by the military, by the Manhattan Project. This is the man who wrote the press release. But then I found out he had written more than one. It is to cover everything from, nothing happened, pay no attention, all the way through poison gas. They couldn't say radiation, not that anyone would understand, but poison gas was released in this explosion. Some people were killed, and because of the gas, we're going to have to evacuate this part of New Mexico, and martial law has been declared. I mean, there's a press release prepared to say that.
Wow.
And they just chose the one that was most appropriate because they didn't know exactly what the bomb was going to do when it exploded.
Wow.
And I found that out, and I went, but my journalistic sense went, that's completely wrong. And then Carl Grossman, the esteemed environmental journalist, who's probably personally responsible for 11 nuclear reactors not being built on Long Island, turned me on to a book called News Zero by a woman named Beverly Deep Keever, where she did the investigation on the New York Times and its attitude towards the bomb, which has always been favorable, and discovered all these things about Lawrence. Now, when he retired, he destroyed all his files, all his papers, his calendars, his letters, everything. He left behind his articles, 4 books, and 2 oral histories that he very much manipulated at Columbia University. That was the source material. So that's not, and it took me years to a bit and a piece and a time compile it. I didn't know I was writing a play until I'd been doing this for about 6 years, and I went, there might be a play in this. And then it took me a couple of more years to come up with the first draft, which was 137 pages and played like the sequel to Fiddler on the Roof in part. But I had the idea, and I couldn't leave it alone, and kept working on it. Just did work in a workshop with a group of women for 2 years with it. And this draft has been accepted and is being produced on Tuesday, September 9th, by the Peace Resource Center at Wilmington College. It is part of their 50th anniversary celebration. This is very prestigious for me. Their 50th anniversary of the founding of the Peace Resource Center, which is internationally renowned. And they're doing a staged reading in a 400-seat theater. I just arrived in Wilmington, and I'm going to be seeing a rehearsal this evening, a rehearsal tomorrow, and then for the first time ever, seeing it in front of an audience on Tuesday night. And I invite everybody to come, be there. It's free. It's festival seating, so come early, get a great seat, and it's going to be quite the ride.
All right. Wilmington, Ohio, so our very own state here. So what's the title of the play? I think we might have skipped past that.
Oh, I might have skipped it. It's called Atomic Bill and the Payment Due. And the short version of it is that it is an Oppenheimer-adjacent true story of media manipulation at the dawn of the atomic age, and the New York Times reporter who sold his soul to get the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the New York Times continues to be sort of an apologist for nuclear power anyway. And, yeah. So one thing I wanted to ask you, because our show, For a Green Future, we talk a lot about nuclear power because I see it sort of as like a bellwether, sort of like a linchpin in terms of if a politician or an activist understands just how evil nuclear is, that kind of demonstrates that they don't have a grasp of the whole ecological picture, because the damage from nuclear technology is so insidious and so subtle that it puts these radioactive nuclides into the food chain, into the food web, into us. But we also talk about the whole spectrum of energy policies and other like chemical problems and so forth. But you've like laser focused all these years on the nuclear. Do you find that the nuclear, like I have always believed, sort of indicates everything else, indicates people's basic grasp of environmental principles? Or do you think that it is so overwhelmingly important that that is the thing that everybody should be focused on all the time?
I think that there are enough issues out there that people can focus on other things as well. This, for me, is the cornerstone. First of all, 3 Mile Island changed my life, but as I started doing this program and continue to do it, I realized this is the one issue we are always steered away from. When cancer rates are discussed, they will blame it on everything from microplastics to cow farts, but they will never, ever say, oh, by the way, all this radiation, this ionizing radiation that got released from every atomic explosion in the environment, the over 1,000 explosions that have taken place in the environment, and is released constantly in the form of tritium and other radionuclides from every nuclear reactor on the ground. You think that that might have something to do, radiation being a known creator of cancer, you think that might have something to do, but any time cancer rates are discussed and what might be the cause, nuclear radiation is never mentioned. We are steered away from that awareness, and we have been from the beginning. Because if we make that equation, then we can turn against energy. Then we can turn against the bomb. Then we've got a very personal reason. Because our mother, our sister, ourselves, we've got it. We know people who have died from it. I don't know a single person who doesn't know someone who has died from cancer. My first question is, where was the closest nuclear exposure that they had? And 9 times out of 10, they're somewhere in proximity.
Yeah, the current cesium scare, they don't talk about the fact that all the radioactive cesium on Earth pretty much was made either at a nuclear plant or at a nuclear bomb. And so this, where is it coming from? But no mention of it could be a nuclear plant, it could be, Fukushima is still dumping radiation into the environment literally every single day. And that whole, they've drawn a curtain in front of the sources of radiation. So, all right.
Right, and that's part of what my play is about. It's taking that curtain away and showing how we got manipulated from the start and it kept on that path, and hopefully will allow people to do a little bit of a direction change in their thinking about nuclear.
All right. Cool. Well, Libbe, sounds great. I hope I can make it. It's a bit of a drive from here. I'm going to try. But definitely our listeners in that area can tell their friends and bring their friends. Anything you'd like to add before we're done?
If people are outside of the range of WGRN and would like to listen to Nuclear Hotseat, we're at nuclearhotseat.com. 740 episodes up at this moment, and a new one every week. And please, come see Atomic Bill on the Payment Due, and if you are a theater or know a theater that might be interested in presenting a reading, please contact me. You can do so through the website, and let's talk about what's possible, because the information in this play can change people's minds, it can change people's hearts, and hopefully we'll do that, and you'll help me get that out to more people who can do it.
All right. Thanks so much, Libbe.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate the offer.
Okay. That was Libbe HaLevy. All right. Now it's time to hear from our wonderful patrons and sponsors. 4 Green Future is brought to you by the Wood County Park District. Imagine a place where nature meets adventure, where you can climb, paddle, fish, and explore. That place is right here in Wood County, Ohio. The Wood County Park District is here to protect, preserve, and inspire. We conserve natural and cultural treasures so you can enjoy the outdoors like never before by maintaining green spaces, providing fun programs, restoring wildlife habitats, and leading outdoor adventures. Want to connect with nature? Try your hand at archery, bouldering, geocaching, paddling, rappelling, and more. Whether you're seeking experience or a peaceful retreat, our parks are open every day from 8 a.m. to 30 minutes past sunset all year round. Come explore, get outside, experience nature. Your parks, your adventures waiting for you. Find us online at wcparks.org or follow on Instagram, Facebook, or X, or call 419-353-1897. That's 419-353-1897. The Wood County Park District, preserving nature, creating adventure, and inspiring a greener future. And of course, For Green Future is also brought to you by our patrons. And our patrons are wonderful people who have gone to patreon.com. That's Patreon. There they searched for A Green Future. Up popped our creator page, as they call it, at Patreon. And they scrolled through, looking at different membership levels, picked the membership level that matched their budget, and now every month a little bit comes out of their account, comes over to us, and that's how we could afford to keep this amazing show on the air. And one reason we like to keep the show on the air is because every week Rebecca shares a little bit of interesting information with us. What do we got on tap this week, Rebecca?
Okay, well, this week I learned that the Toledo Museum of Art is going to have an upcoming exhibit called Infinite Images: The Art of Algorithms. Uh-huh. And according to the museum, whatever, their website, this is described as it's described as revealing how some contemporary artists use mathematical principles, chance, and automation to design and work with generative systems. And it also says, in generative art, the artist creates a system to produce the artwork. This can be anything from written instructions to even to very elaborate computer algorithms. And the artist creates the rules, and the system generates the outcome, is how this kind of stuff works. So that sounds interesting. I mean, it sounds interesting to me because I like to do sort of fiber arts things, including God's Eyes, where like you have an idea, you have a very rigid way that limited things you can do, and you just sort of have an idea about how colors might look together, and then it's collaboration between you and the limitations of the art form, which is true of a lot of things. And so all that the catalog said about AI is that it's sometimes controversial. So a group of local artists, including 2-3 friends of mine, went to talk to the museum director about this. And I'm going to read something from the statement that, it's the notes, actually, that one of them made. The vast majority of the pieces in the exhibit are NFTs. Why? For what purpose? So this requires us to stop and define NFTs. NFT is a non-fungible token. This relates to Bitcoin, which Bitcoins are interchangeable, and then they make these ones that are not interchangeable, which is what non-fungible means. They're unique, and that's considered to be, I guess, a work of art. So they're not interchangeable with the other tokens like Bitcoin. Bitcoin, this involves a lot of definitions. If I'm getting stuff wrong, call me, but it's not my usual approach to technology is Og smash magic box with big rock. So, I'm struggling here right along with, I'm sure I'm not the only one, but Bitcoin is the first decentralized cryptocurrency. What is a cryptocurrency, you might ask? Cryptocurrency is a digital currency designed to work through a computer network. Okay. Having explained that, so why are the majority of the pieces NFTs? Must digital or algorithmic art be an NFT? And additionally, the vast majority of these NFTs are from a series of hundreds or thousands of proof of stake NFTs. That's an insane environmental impact to be platforming. And let's see, more definitions here. POS is not what it's usually used for on the internet. It's proof of stake. And there's also a thing called POW, also not how it's usually used. It's proof of work, which POWs use less energy to construct somehow than POSs. So that's important to the story here.
So in order for it to be real, you have to be able to say how much energy you wasted creating these digital things.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Basically. Even if the blockchain shift from POS to POW is reducing the environmental impact, it does not reverse it. It is still contributing to climate change for nothing more than a digital receipt. The blockchain and NFT trend carelessly pushed climate change forward immeasurably. I should explain that these NFTs are considered to be artworks, and people actually spend money so that you are the only one who can see it, or people need to go to your computer or your phone to see it.
Yeah. I mean, for some, there's a certain class of people, a certain class of collectors that the monetary value of a piece of art is literally the only measure of its artiness.
Yeah, and this is the ultimate expression of that, I think. It's a screensaver. They paid all this money for, thousands in some case for a screensaver.
Uh-huh.
And it's horrible for the environment because it uses AI, and I'll get into that in a minute. The majority of blockchain power comes from countries that still run on coal. And let's see, where did I put the thing about blockchain? Yeah, okay. A blockchain is a system in which a record of cryptocurrency, usually cryptocurrency transactions, is maintained across computers that are linked in a peer-to-peer network. So it's kind of like the very early internet, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Well, local area networks,
right.
Yeah.
So that limits, who can see your thing, and what else does Jasper have to say in the first paragraph here? The blockchain power still runs on coal. Ohio's power bills just doubled because of the strain of AI centers. At least 25% of visual creative jobs have been lost to AI. All of these impacts are going to disproportionately affect the poor people who have no access, involvement, or use for this tech. It's not for us, but we have to pay for it with money and health. And we see it platformed like this with no acknowledgement but an offhand mention of controversy. This tech is run by the same people who want to leave the earth rather than tackle climate change and leave all of us poor people behind. So, I also wanted to explain what is, AI, as far as I can figure it out. AI is, machines that can perform human-like cognitive functions, like learning, problem solving, and making decisions. And AI art, where did I put that one? Sorry, this is unusually chaotic today. AI art is any digital artwork created with the assistance of an AI program, including art, music, and writing. So let's see, is that all of my definitions? Yeah, basically. Okay, the Bitcoins, the whole thing is financed by Bitcoins. Like, you're rewarded with a Bitcoin. That's how you get money for these things, I guess. But yeah, according to Investopedia, Bitcoin mining is a process by which transactions are officially entered on the blockchain and how Bitcoins come into circulation. And miners are rewarded, they get Bitcoin as a reward for creating new blocks in the blockchain. And generating cryptographic numbers is how that happens, which are large random prime numbers used to encrypt data. And I guess this takes a lot of some equipment that uses up just huge amounts, steaming metric tons of power, basically. So that's all I can deal with today. We're going to talk more about Jasper's statement maybe next week.
All right. So real artists are being starved so that
Yeah.
computer artists can get Bitcoin.
And their energy bills just doubled too, so that's special.
We're
As their income went away.
right. And as we say on the show, we talk about it, how ecology affects your wealth, health, and happiness. So your personal wealth is being affected by this whole scam because you are paying higher electric bills. Thanks
Yeah,
to
I gather from witness accounts that the museum director's response was that, oh, well, POWs are better. Well, better isn't good, as my roommate said.
Oh yeah,
It was
that's
attentive.
right. That's
Yeah.
the whole cleaner energy.
Not
that's
as
not
bad.
Clean energy.
No, it isn't. And also, it was they were like, oh, we can't explain the whole thing about the controversy and the AI and the environmental impact because it's too long and people won't read it and we'll lose people. And my roommate's response was, well, okay, do charts then. I'm a visual learner. I have trouble with really
Hire
long
an artist
things.
to
Yeah, to
create
hire an
graphics
artist to create
to
graphics.
demonstrate it, right,
Exactly. So that was their suggestion and response.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Well, thank you for that information.
You're welcome.
And the way I describe it is really, when you think about it, all money is an imaginary commodity.
Very
right?
true. Yeah, it's not so different from regular money.
But regular money, is an imaginary commodity that's produced by a country,
yeah.
whereas Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies are imaginary commodities that are being produced by corporations.
Right.
So you're basically, they're issuing you their money.
Right.
And you have to jump through hoops to get it.
Right.
But it's still, in the end, it's still an imaginary thing. So I prefer to get my old-fashioned money from a country rather than a company.
There you
So,
go.
All right. That's it. Thanks very much, Rebecca. And now on to ecological news. Our first story, ODOT to study potential new interstate. It's a story, we first got turned on to it by the Columbus Dispatch story of August 28th. We also looked at a press release by Congressman David Taylor, who, surprise, is a Republican. And he's talking about creating I-73, which would pretty much follow State Route 23 from the north to the south. It would start in Toledo, go through Columbus, and then go down to West Virginia. But we dug a little deeper, and we found a trade journal called Roads and Bridges. And it turns out this is part of a larger evil plan to create something called the I-73, 74, 75 corridor that would connect the upper peninsula in Michigan to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Is that really necessary?
No, I don't believe so.
I can tell you, okay, it's aggravating getting to Columbus from Toledo. It is, because, like, you have to go on a bunch of little back roads. I get that.
Well, not that many back roads. I mean, 23 is not exactly a back road. It's a divided highway most of the distance. But they want to make it a huge, mega highway. It was kind of interesting because the Dave Taylor, the congressman's press release, talked about how wonderful it is that they've opened up the Piketon uranium enrichment plant again. And so this wonderful highway will connect that to, connect our poisonous uranium fuel to the world. And it's also very interesting that the people pushing this, and there's something called the I-73, 74, 75 Association, which has apparently been pushing for this for many years. And they're using they're saying this could be an excellent evacuation route for hurricanes from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Okay, but what if we had powerful high-speed trains instead? They could evacuate people.
Even better.
Yeah.
Even better. Because
Yeah.
when you have to evacuate a whole, region, invariably there's cars that break down and the traffic gets backed up. And
then it would
doesn't
be
matter.
fun and easy to go to Columbus from Toledo.
Yeah, exactly.
It could even go down to Myrtle Beach. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, we don't need more roads. We need more.
Ooh,
Is the long and short of it. But ODOT's about to waste $1.5 million to do a study to talk about our piece of this terrible Upper Michigan to Myrtle Beach superhighway. And do we really want the UP, Upper Michigan? Do we want that open to that kind of development? I mean, the whole thing about the UP is that it's wild.
Yeah, that's what people like about it.
And
I mean,
when
there's no industrial stuff up there,
Yeah, and when you put superhighways through places like that, they turn into places like Myrtle Beach, which is horribly overdeveloped. So, but this is an important piece of news, the important thing to be aware of that's going on. They're trying to ram a new superhighway through the country. All right, next story. Last week we talked about jellyfish shutting down 4 French nuclear power plants, which go jellyfish, And this week they did it again.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, to a different nuclear plant this time.
Oopsie doodle.
This is a plant. This is one of the largest nuclear plants in France that gets its cooling water from the English Channel. And this plant has 4 different reactors, one of which was already shut down for maintenance because nuke plants constantly need to be shut down for months at a time to replace their fuel rods and stuff. Although they never really count that in their always on 24/7. So, but
except when it's not a lot of the time.
Exactly.
Right.
So one of the reactors was already shut down. One of them, the jellyfish completely blocked the cooling water, so they had to shut that one down.
Yep.
Right. And another one they had to cut down to half power because they were getting enough water past the jellyfish to keep the thing running, but the whole plant, the output was 50% of what was normal, again, during a heat wave in France when they really needed electricity. This is the Paluel, or in French, with a French accent, the Paluel nuclear plant. Output of the 4 reactors is down 2.4 gigawatts, which is a whole lot of power. And just, again, go jellyfish, keep it up, shut as many of those nukes down as you can. I'm thinking jellyfish might become like a new icon for the anti-nuclear movement.
There you go. There's them, and there's the orcas going after the yachts.
Orcas going after yachts.
Maybe the sea is trying to organize all-out war against us.
Yeah.
And can you blame them?
And of course we have the mayflies up here that shut down the
right.
Fermi nuclear power plant. That was a great day. Nice. So all right. Anyway, on to more stories. We've got about 10 minutes left of the show here. Trump is trying to eliminate the roadless rule. Roadless rule was created in 2001. Basically, it said if there's a part of a national forest which has never had a road, which has always been wild since the founding of the country, no new roads are allowed in there.
Right.
Because once you do roads, you're 4 times more likely to get wildfires. 90% of wildfires actually are within half a mile of a road, start within half a mile of a road. So Trump is saying, we're going to build roads to prevent wildfires when roads cause wildfires.
Yeah.
And to improve habitats when every study says roads degrade habitats. Fewer animals and fewer kinds of animals could live in a forest once you've put a giant road through it. Our friends over at Center for Biological Diversity are fighting this. They're saying that imperils a whole bunch of endangered species like wolverines, wolves, grizzly bear, lynx, spotted owl, and the Quino checker spot butterfly. And they're saying it's basically a giveaway to the timber industry, who gave Trump tons and tons of money, which hard to argue against that. I don't really see any counter evidence to that assertion.
True, yeah. They did, in fact, give him lots and lots of money.
Yeah, they did. Comments are open until September 19th. So if you're somebody who cares about that, check out the Center for Biological Diversity's website, or just go right to the U.S. Forest Service and tell them, do not eliminate the roadless rule. So now we got to get some good news in there to counterbalance that. Renew Economy, September 7th. Title is Grid Security Needs Out to Single Gas Turbine in Latest Step Towards 100% Net Renewables. So essentially the story is that the South Australia grid now has so much wind and solar and battery that they only have a single fossil fuel plant left for the entire grid. And that plant is not really supplying power. It's supplying, essentially it's called synchronous power. It's only 40 megawatts, which is a tiny little, it's like 1/50th of a nuclear power plant. But it's basically to keep the whole grid going at that 60 cycles per second. You need we have needed a spinning physical thing that's spinning at 60 cycles per second, because you need to have all the energy sources on your entire grid synced together at that 60 cycles, or
Right.
else if all the generators were to get out of sync, basically everything would explode. Your transformers would catch fire. Your house, your power coming into your house would create, things. You turn on your microwave, it would catch fire. Synchronicity is extremely important in a grid, and it has to be exactly right over the entire grid, or you're in huge trouble. Now, the makers of grid forming inverters, which are just the electronic way to sync stuff up, say that we don't even need one synchronous plant. We can get rid of the whole physical spinning thing altogether, but the people running the grid are not ready to do that in South Australia. And in fact, they are using what are called syncons. And syncons are like electric generators, except they don't use any fuel. All they do is use the grid to spin at exactly 60 cycles per second. And so they've got 4 of these syncons that are providing grid stability, and they're not ready to go 100% electronic yet. No large-scale grid has ever done that. But it's an important point. It's an important step on the road to 100% renewables. Right now, that South Australia is getting 50% of its power from rooftop solar. 90% of the demand is being met with wind. And one problem that they're, quote-unquote problem, they're facing is that when the renewables are providing more than 100%, so in other words, demand goes to zero, that's when grid instability could happen. And so that's why the South Australian grid operators are holding on to this last plant, but it's important to note that they're down to 1, and it's only 40 megawatts. It's literally just there to provide stability. Okay, now speaking of instability, we had last week, we reported last week that Trump has forbidden a wind farm, the Orsted Revolution Wind Farm off the coast of Rhode Island and Connecticut. Story in The Guardian on September 4th, the governors of both Rhode Island and Connecticut are now suing the Trump administration. In the words of the Attorney General of Connecticut, this kind of erratic and reckless governing is blatantly illegal. That's a fellow named William Tong. A lot of people are very upset about this. 1,000 AFL-CIO workers got immediately fired. And the Sheldon Whitehouse, the senator, said the only winners are the corrupt fossil fuel donors.
Yep, sounds about right.
Donors, right. And it is about right. Wind is the cheapest form of energy. And a Trump official did go on one of the talk shows, Sunday talk shows, and said that the security is what if drones were to attack these wind turbines. But we actually had a guest on from Ukraine, and Ukraine is building wind farms precisely because they are so difficult to destroy with drones.
What if drones attacked the fossil fuel, or what if they attacked the nuclear?
Exactly. With a fossil fuel or a nuclear, you could destroy the entire facility with one drone strike in the right place. But when you have a distributed generation, when you've got 40 wind turbines, if you take out one, the other 39 keep working.
Yep.
And so you would have to literally destroy 40. You'd have to have 40 accurate drone strikes to do the work of one drone strike with a centralized power source. Yep. So in other words, once again, the Trump administration is full of it.
And
you could figure out what it is for yourself. And as a demonstration of that, our next story, Department of Ecology in Washington State released a report. There's a story here from Washington State. Ecology debunks federal climate report reaffirming commitment to real science. Basically, the Department of Energy hired a bunch of fossil fuel cronies to do this report claiming that global warming isn't real. And so the Department of Ecology in Washington State has issued an official rebuke That ecology department is run by a fellow named Casey Sixkiller, and he pointed out that the effects of global warming are real and already happening: wildfires, heat waves, and droughts. And this report is full of factual errors and inconsistency. And over in Washington State, they're particularly sensitive to it because in 2021 they had a heat wave that killed 126 people. Since that state is normally so cool, a lot of people don't even have air conditioning in their houses. And they accused the whole report of being cherry-picked data, which is, like today actually happens to be 10 degrees below average. And if you look back at September 9th through the years, you might be able to draw like a downward line on September 9th. But there's the other 364 days of the year, and if you gather all your data together, you're going to show that the whole planet is warming up fast. But if you cherry pick, you can basically prove whatever you want.
Right.
So they sent a letter to Chris Wright, the Energy Secretary, who's a fossil fuel lobbyist. And Chris Wright this past week actually did a tweet that sort of lit up X. And he tweeted, "Wind and solar energy infrastructure is essentially worthless."
Whatever.
Even though like Iowa gets 2/3 of its power from wind and solar energy, somehow that's worthless. So So in other words, he's lost all credibility. He is still a fossil fuel lobbyist, even though he is Secretary of Energy. And so it's just another example of how basically they have lost all credibility. The Trump administration is just wrong. All right, that's it. That was our show. Thank you so much for listening. This is Joe DeMare.
And Rebecca Wood.
And we are signing off.
But that black demon oil's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. I don't want them nukes run by them kooks who think radioactivity is fun. No more three-headed frogs or kids with leukemia. Nuclear power ain't fit for a dog. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that nuclear power's got us fussing and fighting,